Hi, everyone. We are so excited for this conversation today. This is specifically for military homeschool families. So, thanks for joining us. My name is Natalie Mack, and I am a high school educational consultant and military outreach coordinator here at HSLDA. I'm also a Navy chaplain's wife and homeschooled four of my five children on to college. And we have one who is a rising ninth grader. So we're starting the high school thing all over again. So I am also president of Belvoir Home Educators. So I've been in homeschool group leadership for almost 20 years, I think, losing count with all the relocations, which is what we're going to talk about today. So, joining me for this discussion is my dear, what I call Napoli Bella, and I'll unpack that later. My dear friend, Beverly Jacobson. Beverly is a recently retired Air Force wife. She's a trisomy advocate, and she's mom to nine. So, to all of my fellow homeschooling parents joining us on Facebook, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so excited. I shared this everywhere because I'm so passionate about military homeschooling. I'm hoping that it's reaching you. I'm hoping you'll be blessed today with this first of hopefully, possibly many. We want your feedback about that. So, but we're glad that you're here. So, will you let us know in the comments where you are joining from? And the famous question that all military families are asked: how many times have you relocated, or what we call PCS, right? Acronyms, military acronyms, PCS, primary change of station, for those of you all who don't know what I'm talking about. So, also, please be sure to put any questions that you have in that chat. And we will reserve some time for Beverly and I to go through and try to answer as many as we can. So, Beverly and I have navigated many relocations as military spouses and homeschool moms. Many of you all listening probably can relate. Relocations is part of that military life, and we're all homeschoolers, or else you are considering homeschooling. So, we actually originally met in Naples, Italy. And so that's where that Bella Napoli, that Naples Bella, okay? Because in Italy, everyone is Bella, right? And you hear Ciao Bella all of the time. So that's where we met. And we actually, ironically, became friends prior to her arriving in Naples via our Facebook group for our Naples Christian Homeschool Support Group. So it's interesting because here we are again after all these years joining together on this Facebook Live. And so it's really interesting how God brings things full circle in many cases. So Beverly had reached out to our group in anticipation of her move to Naples. And many of you all understand that's what we do as military families, right? And so I made it a priority to respond to our incoming families. I felt it was important for them to know who and what we were, right? As they attempted to kind of make connections with that next duty station. And Beverly responded, the group embraced, and so when she arrived, we felt like we already knew Beverly Jacobson and the whole entire Jacobson family. So I'm excited to have Beverly here, and I want to give Beverly a chance to just introduce herself and just let us know a little bit, yeah, about yourself and your family. Beverly, take it away.
Hey, thank you so much, Natalie, for inviting me to come and join. HSLDA has absolutely been part of our journey as a homeschooling family. And so this is really a privilege and an honor to join you today. And of course, to catch up with one of my Napoli friends. So our time in Italy was so special to us as a homeschooling family. And I know that you know all of the history coming to life is just really amazing. So let's see, I've been married for almost 24 years and we have homeschooled absolutely from the very beginning. My husband and I knew that we were going to do homeschooling as a lifestyle. Although actually, I think in my mind, I thought, oh, I'll get them through the elementary years because I can, I can handle that. I have a degree in
Right.
English education. I thought maybe I could help them with writing and that kind of thing. But I really wasn't so sure we were going to do the high school thing. But we have graduated two now.
Um,
And we've been doing this since 2005, since our oldest was in kindergarten. And
awesome.
our third one is not homeschooling, and so that's been a little bit of a different journey to set him on a little bit different course, but he homeschooled up through the previous year. And then we're still schooling 5. And then our youngest is our special needs child. So we'll chat about her a little bit more later, I think. But
Yes, very.
I think my husband and I were just placed in positions where there were mentors speaking into our lives even before we got married. And so we were kind
Praise
of
God for
interested
that.
in the homeschool journey, but really it's a calling. I absolutely believe it's a calling, because if you don't believe that, then it's very easy to just say, this is too hard. I'm gonna move on and try something else. But we knew that the Lord was calling us to it, and it has been a joy and a blessing. And I every year I still get excited about it. Although I will say I'm ready for summer more and more as each school
Yeah,
year comes to a close.
isn't that funny how, as homeschoolers, many of us also, like our more traditionally schooled families, right? Many of us also look forward to summer coming as a break. I know there are families that homeschool year
Mhm.
round. Even they slow down a little bit, I think, over the summer. And so I'm looking forward to summer too, definitely.
Yes.
So, how many times have you had to relocate your family over the years?
I get a little mixed up. I think because I think the number is 13 houses, so that's not necessarily different places. Um,
Right.
so we were in Texas, Idaho, Ohio, Maryland, Vegas, back to Ohio, then to Italy, then to Nebraska, and then to Colorado, where my husband retired, where we are now. So 9 duty stations, and my husband had some deployments in there, so he counts those
Right.
as his relocations. But the family and I stayed behind. So yeah,
Yes. That
22
is
years of service.
That is awesome. That is awesome. I probably should let our listeners and viewers know that a little bit also about myself, that we started homeschooling in 2001, right before 9/11. Like, oh gosh.
Mm.
And as military families do, you get orders and you start to relocate. So we had orders to Camp Pendleton, California. And I was expecting our 4th child, and I was 30, let me think here, 32 weeks pregnant, and 9/11 hit. We were supposed to fly literally right after that. So that's a whole nother story for maybe another Facebook Live. I don't know. But I will say, in terms of how many times we have relocated, I did the list. I was kind of like you, like, okay, let me think. Okay, do I count houses that we've lived in? Because sometimes you move in the midst of a duty station to another house, or they totally renovate housing and they move you. In my case, one of those types of situations was a mold issue that was in the housing, which was very, very old when we first moved to Camp Pendleton, and one of our sons was very allergic. So, but it came out to be about a total of 9 actual relocations. And we have some Army time, and that's another story, because I know that I mentioned my husband's a Navy chaplain, but he was an Army officer from college. Uh, got out of the military and accepted his calling, is why he got out to the ministry. So anyway, that could be another Facebook story about the whole transition. But yeah, so we started with, if I go back to, we were at Fort Irwin National Training Center. I'm naming duty stations because, like Beverly, right? Military, we kind of, when we hear duty stations, we connect, right? And so Fort Irwin, California to Fort Huachuca to Germany, to Bad Kreuznach, Germany, which is no longer in existence. And then back to here to Fort Belvoir. And then we did that civilian time, and my husband went to seminary, and we came back in at Navy side. And that was Camp Pendleton, California, Virginia Beach, and then Naples, Italy, which is where you and I met, and then Jacksonville, which was down by Camp Lejeune and New River Air Station, and then up to USIS, Uniform Services University for the Health Sciences here in Bethesda. And then we are a Geo Bachelor family right now. So my husband is on stationed in San Diego on a ship. So woo, right? So it's a lot. It's a lot. So what are some of your favorite places that you have lived, and why?
Mm.
I
Well,
know.
absolutely, Italy. You can't top
I
that.
know.
I,
Same for
I mean,
me.
for
I know it.
all the quirks, and there were some difficulties in Naples in
Yes.
particular, but for us, at the time we had 6 children when we moved overseas. So that's a large family
Yeah.
and it's not easy to travel with a large family, but we have a passion for history, for travel, and for introducing our kids to different cultures and just exposing them to different things. And so that was a blessing that came after my husband was in Afghanistan for a year. And then since he was non-volunteered for that, he was able to have a little bit of a say into where he went next. And he said, just give me anything in Europe. And so his career field, that's where we landed, was in Naples. And to do world history where we could go to Rome, where we could go to Greece, or just see the castles. It was absolutely amazing. So that I don't think we can top that. However, coming to Colorado has been a huge answer to prayer too, because he is from Colorado. We love the mountains. We love the climate here. And we always prayed that we could get to Colorado, but God in his
Wow.
sovereignty allowed us to come here at the very end so that he
Isn't
could
that
retire
something?
here. And that ties into our story with our daughter Verity and her special needs and the care that we receive here. So, uh, but really, every single place we've been, we started his first assignment out of his intel training was to Mountain Home, Idaho, which we loved, but we learned as we got up there that not a lot of spouses were super excited to go to the middle of the desert in Idaho, where the nearest shopping mall was 50 some miles away.
That was the same with
But
Fort Irwin, yes.
yeah, so that experience as a young Air Force wife before we had kids, but our first was born during that tour, that really taught us that location doesn't matter. It's the people. It's
That's so
the
true.
community. It's the
So true.
relationships that you build. And for us as believers in Jesus, the
Yes,
church is our family because we have
exactly.
hardly ever had the opportunity to live. Now we do. Denver is just up the road, and my mother-in-law and my brother-in-law and his family live there. This is the closest we've ever been to family. But for us, you build military connections, believers in Christ, your church family, that's your family. And so
Exactly.
once we
Exactly.
experienced that, it didn't really matter where we went. I mean, at first there was kind of, oh, Ohio, whoopee, what's in Ohio? But
Right, right.
we got to be stationed there twice, and we were so grateful when we found out we were going back because we had those relationships, and it is what you make of it, and it's really your mindset.
Yes, I totally agree. And I also agree with the desert. And as a young military family for wife, actually, at Fort Irwin, yeah, it's like 30 miles plus to the nearest little town, which is Barstow, which is
Mm.
famous for McDonald's in an old train station, right? So,
Mhm.
but it was such a precious time because that is where my husband and I really grew in our faith too, out in the
Mhm.
desert, and God just was so real to us in a time that we needed it, and joining together in marriage and just beginning our ministry together as a couple. So we have just such fond memories of that special bonding time that was so crucial for us. So I appreciate that. I understand. I'm right there with you. So
Mhm.
so so when you've been relocating, there are challenges, right? And that's what we're talking about, finding connection through relocations. And military families do relocations really, really well. That's not to say we aren't stressed and not to say they aren't big adjustments and hard. Like I just had to say goodbye to dear friends that I've known for 5 years here who retired and moved to Texas. And I'm in tears, like, why and how is this happening? I'm used to leaving people and I'm used to people leaving me, but that doesn't mean our heart is not affected, and that doesn't mean that there are not challenges as we do this thing really well according to the world, right? So what are
Right.
some of the challenges and does it depend on the kids' ages? And just let's talk a
Mm.
little bit about that.
Absolutely. I think, like you said, we had an opportunity to kind of get used to the idea of this is our life. We move every so often. We moved several times before our daughter was in kindergarten, and we were really launching into this homeschool journey. So we had a chance to get that under our belt for a little bit. And then we had actually 4 years in Las Vegas. So he did 2 years at Nellis and 2 years at Creech. But 4 years is a long time to stay anywhere, really, when
Yes.
you're a military family. And so it was a good opportunity for us because we were really getting into the homeschooling lifestyle and learning how to do that, receiving input from new friends, from mentors, benefiting from that community. And so the first time we had to move really as a homeschool family, my daughter had just finished third grade. We had a first grader and a kindergartner. So that's when it started to kick in that, oh, this is kind of hard. It's harder than I remembered, because when they're little, you could just scoop them all up and we say,
Right.
oh, we get to have a new house and new friends.
How
And you make
fun,
it
right?
fun.
Let's go to the
Right.
playground.
And it's not as easy, when they start to realize, wait a second, I have these friends and play group or co-op or whatever it is. And it's just, that was the beginning. That was the beginning of realizing, okay, we need to be super intentional about making connections, not just for us parents and as a couple, but for our children. And it's much harder than saying, oh, I need a play group, a mom's mom's day out or whatever. It had to be, the kids are bringing their own personalities, their own history and experiences and likes and dislikes to the table now. It's not as mom driven as it used to be.
Right.
And so before every move, as soon as we would get, of course, we prayed over the assignments. So prayer is just
that's it, right? That's the umbrella.
Just have to, right? You're just praying all the time, praying over, current issues and then the future, and you never know what the future will bring. And then all of a sudden, okay, the assignment's dropped. Now we know where we're going. You start researching, and but before you even get your boots on the ground, it's prayer. I'm praying, Lord, what church do you have for us? Are we going to be part of the chapel? Are we going to be part of a local body? What homeschool groups are there? Because there's so many different options. And then what, you have to find a good fit for your educational philosophy. And then as the kids got older, it was being very intentional to pray for their friends, that this is such a valuable part of growing up. And, bad company corrupts good character. The scripture tells us.
And it can undo a lot of what we have tried to, and still, right?
Right. And that's exactly why a lot of us choose to keep homeschooling through those difficult teenage years, because we know those influences are so important, those peers, and having godly friends, and those that with, they don't have to be clones, but similar values and a similar experience, and parents that have similar, boundaries and that kind of thing. That was, as the kids got older, and then especially into their teenage years, we had to be super intentional to pray for it, and then to pray with them so that they would be praying for the people who were going to be their friends at their next place. And then what a blessing to see as God answered those prayers, and they were able to say, I've been praying for a friend like this, and God answered my prayer. And not only did he give me one friend, but I have this group of friends, or it just was so sweet to see how their own faith journey could grow as we were intentional to have those conversations.
Oh gosh, I needed to hear that. It's amazing. Like, here I am, doing this and interviewing you, and that was the plan, of course. And of course, that's what we're doing. But I needed to hear that, because now I'm down to one Nathaniel, who you remember, was little like this, and right? And now he's going in 9th grade, and he's like an only child, because the next child is starting sophomore year in college, and this year was home as virtual, but is going on campus. And I'm thinking, gosh, we are having that. My mom's heart is having a hard time, and it's not even a relocation for us. It's just, again, that military life. The family that I said left was good friends of theirs. Their two youngest kids were his friends, and we've done a lot together. And then over COVID, we were in this pod, the two families together. So there's a lot of transition. So that's a reminder to me. Thank you, Beverly, and to our viewers. I'm sure someone that resonated with is that, we know to pray, but do we really, really know to pray? Do we remember to pray about the small things, the big things, because they all really matter so much. They impact us. And so I needed that, because that, I need to take some things and, to God in prayer about his friends and what we're talking about, the next co-op. What do we do? Right. So I appreciate that.
It starts early. I just have memories of some of my kids even praying for a house with stairs because it was a big
Exactly.
deal for them. And, God is so kind. And not
Yes.
only does he give us the relationships, but sometimes he just gives us those little things, just let me just show you that I'm listening to that heartfelt prayer
Exactly.
from a
Right.
child.
Just
And
like the
sometimes
heart with the
that's
stairs, right?
right.
I mean,
It
the
speaks
house
to
with the
me,
stairs. Yeah.
he's a good father. And so just
Yeah.
encouraging your kids, whatever is important to them, God can either answer that prayer as a yes, or he can shape those desires. And then they'll look back and say, oh, well, that wasn't really a good thing to pray for anyways. But
Yes.
however it works out, just praying over everything and not just the big things, I think is a really
Exactly. I
important
love it.
lesson for
I
all of
love it.
us.
So meaningful. So such a good
Mm-hmm.
reminder. And we need reminders. We do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I wanted to say, we talked about the challenges at being a military family, relocating, finding support, finding connections. I know that we've briefly mentioned Verity, and she's such a dear sweetheart. And um, you know, I want you to go ahead and, if you feel comfortable, just if you
Sure.
would share just a little bit about Verity and how God has such a blessing, and just if you could
Mm,
just share a little bit, I would love to give you that opportunity.
absolutely. Um, Verity is our ninth child. We call her our caboose. She's our last one. And so to first of all, just address the fact that I know homeschoolers often have a reputation for having big families, but that was not really our plan
Yes,
or intention. When we got
yes,
married, my husband and I each have one younger brother, and that's it. And we really thought family was mom, dad, two kids. That's kind of
right.
what we knew. And if you had asked us, in fact, I saw our, journaling from our premarital counseling, and we said, oh, two, maybe three kids. Ha ha, right? So that whole story is literally a book. I wrote a book, Unplanning Our Parenthood, about that, how we did not intend to have a big family, but the Lord worked on our hearts, and through a series, just event after event, we came to have this bigger family. So
Mhm.
we had our eighth child, and I was tired. I was in my 40s. I was, oh Lord, I think I'm ready to be done. And I thought in my heart that the Lord said, enjoy her because she's your last. Well,
Mhm.
I must have heard a little bit wrong. And
Sometimes
so
we do, right?
yeah, I may have misunderstood what he was telling me. But
Mhm.
so just when I found out I was pregnant again with our ninth, that was a journey for me spiritually, because I really was kind of angry. I was tired. I was
Mhm.
done. I felt overwhelmed with eight children.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
know, from the outside looking in, it can look like, oh, they've got it all together, big white van, homeschooling family, they do all the things, but we don't, it's hard. And I was really wrestling with this. So the Lord and I worked through the summer of 2016, and I came to terms with, okay, he wants us to have one more. And I felt a peace about that. That's one more. That's it. We're done. Okay, Lord, we can do this.
Mhm.
And
Right.
then,
Right.
then I got the phone call from the
Okay.
doctor telling me that I had an elevated risk for Edwards syndrome. And I have heard of Down syndrome. Most people have heard of Down syndrome, which is the extra
Okay.
21st chromosome. But Edwards
Mhm.
syndrome is the extra 18th chromosome.
Mhm.
And that, like other rare trisomy disorders, produces usually some more significant issues. In fact,
Mhm.
many of these babies don't make it to term. What
Mhm.
I was told over the phone when I was asking, trying to get some feel for, okay, where do I land with this? What does this mean? They told me well, we didn't know it was a girl at the time, but this the baby probably will not make it alive to birth, and if so,
Mm.
very brief, very difficult life. And we were devastated,
Yes.
absolutely devastated, of course. And
Mhm.
abortion is not an option for us. We
Mhm.
knew that there was no mistake per se, even though we did confirm, we went on to confirm her diagnosis, and an extra chromosome is considered by the world to be a mistake, but we know our God makes no mistakes.
Right.
And we
Exactly.
know that she
Amen.
is made in the image of God, like every
Amen.
single person
Mhm.
created.
Mhm.
But then it was this journey of not knowing how long I would be pregnant with her. If she made
Right.
it to term, what was that going to look like? Would she be born alive? Would we bring her home from the hospital? If we did, what did that mean for our family to care for a
Right.
special needs child? And so my pregnancy was full of angst, uh,
Mm.
some dark, difficult
Mhm.
times,
Mhm.
honestly. It's not an exaggeration to say it affected every single person in my family, even the littlest ones who didn't fully understand what was going on. Mommy and
Mhm.
daddy were having a hard time processing this,
Mhm.
and our teenagers were having a hard time with this. But we as parents were so overwhelmed, it was hard for us to do self-care, let alone, pour into our kids.
Right.
And that year of homeschooling looked different. The next year looked different. In
Mhm.
fact, probably the next couple of years looked really different.
Mhm.
And we shifted into what we call survival mode. And there was just this big cloud, this question mark hanging over the pregnancy. What was going to happen with Verity? And so to fast forward a little bit, spoiler alert, she's doing
Uh-huh.
amazing.
Yes, she is.
She's 4 years old now. And I look back on that time and it seemed forever, because when you
Yeah.
don't know what's going to happen, it feels forever. And I
It
really,
does.
I clung to the Psalms. I prayed.
Mm.
I
Mm.
showed up to have my Bible reading time with Ted. We would drink coffee because we were not getting sleep. And
Mhm.
we would just sit there like, I got nothing, God. I don't
Mm.
even know where to go with this. And I would
Mhm.
let David or the other writers of the Psalms pray for me,
Mhm.
because I didn't have words. Um, Even when she was born, and we spent 18 days in the NICU and got to bring her home, which that in itself was a miracle. We were told 5 to 15 days was the average lifespan for children with this condition. We've since learned that statistics are a little skewed and
Right.
interventions make a huge difference. And so we do advocate for families that have a prenatal diagnosis, and we've since gone on to we just formed a nonprofit, Verity's Village, and we would love to serve. If any of you have any connections or have friends or family that receive a prenatal diagnosis, we're here to help, because we've walked this journey. But all that to say, bringing your baby to term and to birth and home is not the end of the story. It's the start of a new normal. And that
Right.
new normal for us was living in fear of her passing at any time,
Right.
because statistically she wasn't supposed to make it to her first birthday. Every time we had a run to the hospital or something weird would happen,
Right.
we were that's where our minds went. That
Yeah.
takes a toll. It takes a toll on a
Yes.
marriage. It takes a toll on your relationships with your teenagers and your little ones. There's not enough of
Mhm.
mommy to go around. And I found myself desperately praying. And oh yes. And we had a PCS in the
Yes,
middle
of
of all
course.
this.
You had to throw the
Right.
PCS in there. Right. Right. Of course.
So, lest I forget, since we started out talking about the challenges of relocating, when you relocate with a fragile baby and you have to restart care, you have to figure out what does TRICARE cover, and what kind of support is there in the community. I didn't even know what questions to ask, and that was a full-time job. And so I was telling the Lord, if you want me to homeschool these kids, something has to give. I can't do this.
Mhm.
And I was
Mhm.
looking into charter schools, I was looking into private schools. We can't afford this, and it's too much. And then God graciously opened the doors, and we didn't know that we could qualify for home care. And at 8 months of age, Verity got her first home care nurse, who happened to be a believer
I
and
think I
happened to
remember hearing
be
seeing that. Mhm.
just who God ordained for us to make this awkward transition between me doing everything and not having any, like, I couldn't leave Verity because we were fearful of her aspirating because of some of her GI issues and breathing issues. And now all of a sudden there was someone in home caring for my child
Yes.
in the other room, and I could sit on the couch and read with my kids.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so the Lord clearly told me, you will keep homeschooling, and I
Yeah.
will give you what you need, because I was on the
Mm.
verge of saying, I can't do this. Send them to school, and Lord, you'll
Yes.
just have to deal with the mess that
Right.
we
Right.
can't cover. But God, in his sovereignty and in his grace, when I didn't know what to pray, I just prayed, Lord, cover the, we talk about gaps in
Yes.
education.
Yes.
I
Yes.
prayed, cover the
Cover it.
chasms.
Right.
because
Exactly.
we're not
Yeah.
talking gaps. We're talking massive chasms that I
Yes.
look back on, on my 17-year-old's high school journey, and we're basically giving him a fifth year of high school because for him that freshman year was almost a wash, but
Yeah.
not really,
Right.
because
Not
God,
really, but I hear you.
yeah, he taught him what he needed to know, and it's with his birthday is such that he would have been a really young graduate if we decided to graduate him this year. And with his
Mm,
full support, he said, no, I think you're right, I think I need one more year, and this is what we're going to do. So
mhm,
God covered
mhm.
it. He covered when I couldn't teach him the science and keep up with the history. We did what we could with what we had, and the Lord has been so gracious. And I'm not going to say there weren't regrets. I'm not going to
Mhm.
say, like, oh, it all turned out perfectly. We
Right.
have wrestled. We still are coming to terms with some of the repercussions of the difficulties of that year. But you know what that tells me is that Isaiah 61,
Yes.
1 through
Yes.
4, which is
Yes.
that was a special passage to me before, but he's giving beauty for these ashes.
Right.
And
Exactly.
that includes not just external circumstances, but it includes the yuck in our hearts
Yes.
when there are poor choices, when sin and selfishness take over.
Right.
And as parents, we have regrets, and I know our teens, they're responsible for their own decisions, and there are some regrets there. But by God's grace,
By
we
God's
still
grace.
have
Yes.
a strong and healthy marriage that is stronger than ever.
Yes.
We have relationships with our teens, with our young adult children,
Yes.
where we can talk and say, wow, this was a hard time. I'm sorry this happened, and I'm sorry that I wasn't there. But there's forgiveness, there's grace with each
Right.
other.
Right. Right.
And Verity, she has no clue. She has no clue that she rocked our world.
Yes.
She is nonverbal. She's probably never going to walk unassisted, but she is the best gift that God could have given to our family
Yes.
because of the
Praise.
growth and
Yes.
because it took us away from checking the boxes of homeschooling
Right.
into the lifestyle that God ultimately is calling us all to. And we could say that at the beginning, oh, we're homeschooling because we want to know Jesus more. We want to teach our kids about God. Wow.
Here.
Well,
Wow.
how do you work that out? How do you walk and live it out when you're in the middle of the desert and
Oh gosh.
you
Such deep.
you
Oh
have
my gosh.
nothing to bring to the table? It's His
Right.
grace that's
It's His
sufficient.
grace. Exactly. And you're so right. Yeah, we do. As Christian homeschoolers, this is what we pray and want.
Mm-hmm.
But God puts you right into the midst of it,
Yeah.
like, real life right
Right?
there in the
Like, I
midst.
didn't pray for that.
Like, no, no, right, right, right. It's like they say,
I
don't
prayed for
pray.
the happy,
Right.
like
Yeah.
my kids will follow Jesus, but
Right.
I didn't
What
necessarily
appears very
realize
simple now, right?
what I was praying for, right? If I
Exactly. It's
really
like
want them to follow
it's
and,
like they
to,
say,
yeah,
it's like they say, don't, if you pray for patience, right? Be
yes,
careful, right? So it's like, okay, that is like, oh gosh, you know, and although we're talking about relocations, we're also just talking about just real life and in the thick
yeah,
of it, right? And the struggles
yeah,
that we have. And um, you know, there are relocations that are just can appear very devastating, right? I
mm,
mean, nothing, of course, comparable to what you just shared with us and opened
mm,
up, and unpacked for us. But
mm,
you hear all the time, we're relocating to, in the middle of the desert, right? Or we're
mm,
relocating someplace and we're dreading going. We're going kicking and screaming.
mm-hmm,
I didn't want to come back to this area. This is home. I love this area in the DC area. I love it, but I didn't want to come back. I wanted to see a new place that we had not been. I
mm,
came kicking and screaming. I came in obedience because my husband was like, I think we need to go back. And I'm like, no, but I came, right? So,
right,
well, you really don't have a choice. Military, they'll come pack you up anyway. They will pack you up in the box, right? They will always laugh
yes,
about those families, right? But
uh-huh,
on a serious note, I understand the struggles, of relocating. And our middle son, Noah, he was born as a bilateral congenital cataracts. And so he
Mm,
had those removed at age 2 and 3 months. And so he's now what
mm,
we call bilateral aphakic, which means he has no natural lens. So he's been
mm.
wearing contact lenses since he was about 3 months of age, and then developed secondary glaucoma. So we have that we've been going through. And right when the doctor said, okay, this is how you put contact lenses in a 3-month-old baby, terribly hard time. My husband was deployed. We were at Camp
Mm,
Pendleton, and so he was deployed into the middle of the Iraqi desert. And so, how in the world? And we were a few months into homeschooling, right? Because he was the son that was born. He's the son that I was pregnant with as we,
right.
right in 9/11. So, it's hard. It's hard. And so, and God's grace, and what we've learned through that journey, I wouldn't have known to ask for it, but I'm so, so thankful for that journey
Yes.
and for the growth and the bonding and just all of the things. Even through the rough desert times, the hard
Yes.
times, God has been so faithful. And the kids used to, we pack up book bags, and for appointments, right? And everybody was taking something to do, hopefully schoolwork, but
Right.
we are so overwhelmed sometimes, right? We don't know. And then when you add a relocation in there, you're trying to find connection and you're trying to figure out where
Mm.
you want to be. So what are some ways like that you've been able to find connection in relocating, either online or in person? Any things that you might
Mhm.
want that come to mind that you want to share?
Yeah, of course, our journey has spanned kind of pre-internet days, and then now we've got the
Right.
world at
Out
our
to the right.
fingertips, right? So I always think word of mouth connections are great, and if there's a friend of a friend or someone has, you know, a connection, that's a great place to start. I always like those personal connections as possible. Of course, it's not always possible, but I know that one of our well, all of our church families have been so special, but one came about through a connection. Like my cousin's husband said, "Oh, hey, check out this church," because they had a personal connection with the pastor there, and so we visited. And by the time we left that first day, they had learned all the names of our kids, which is a big feat to accomplish. And we just felt so loved and accepted, and that was beautiful. I don't know that that would have been I don't know that it would have looked the same if we had searched just online. You can't quite
Right.
get a feel,
That's so true.
online.
That's so true. We can
But on
Google,
the
but Google doesn't
right,
quite still cut it, right?
right. On the flip side, like you mentioned earlier, I somehow, I guess I don't remember the details, but Facebook was a thing, and we knew we were going to Italy, and so somewhere in there, I guess I searched, or I don't know how I stumbled upon the Napoli, Christian homeschool group, but
Yes.
I met you, I met Tanya. I
Carla,
remember those
Shauna.
two ahead of time
Yes. Yes.
were
Right.
the connections, before we got
Got
to
it.
Italy,
Yes.
and then
Exactly.
once we got there, I felt like I had a good feel for questions to ask and things to do and what to look out for and what to expect. That was super helpful because an overseas move is so much harder. There are just so many more
Yes.
factors to deal with. So I think the the Facebook support groups, if you're a Facebook person, that's a great place to go.
Hmm.
There are lots of Instagram accounts. A lot of groups have their own Insta accounts or other ways that they reach out. It's been a while since I've had to do the research and
Right.
prepare, coming into a place, because we've now been here in Colorado for 4 years, which
Has
is
it been 4 years?
yeah,
Wow. Wow.
2017. Yeah.
Wow. There's a dear
So,
military, well, we're talking military, so I didn't need to say that, but there's a dear friend, family that moved about maybe 2 years ago. She may be actually watching, but I need to connect you.
hmm.
They moved from here to Colorado. So
Oh,
I've been
okay.
telling
Yeah.
her we're going to connect. And that's what we do as military. That's another way, right? We
Right.
say, oh, I know so-and-so at that duty station, right? Or you're going
Yes.
there. And interesting enough, the same with Lisa. Lisa Rosca, right? I'm calling out
Yes.
names and
Yes.
she may be watching as well. But in any case, coming from Eastern North Carolina to Naples, I don't know, I think she arrived and we connected and I actually had some IKEA
Oh,
bookshelves and
yes.
all, and some bikes, and she got those. And I was moving to where she had just PCS
Oh,
from.
that's right. Yeah,
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 and so we shared
yeah.
all kinds of info, and it was just such like, wow, God is just so awesome like that.
Hmm.
God really blesses military families.
Yes.
We don't do this. We love our country. We love what we are called to do. And God just, I think, blesses that in strengthening and giving us connections with
Yes.
people. So now, sometimes it's a little bit of a challenge, though, for us as military families, military homeschooling families specifically, to get connected to non-military groups.
Mm.
Um, Sometimes it's a little bit challenging. One of the things that I've run into is in terms of in terms of being in leadership in those groups, it's a little bit challenging because I think from their perspective, we're going to move, right?
Hmm.
And we're in a position and we are going to get orders and disappear, right? And I know to
Right.
many non-military feels like, wow, you were just here and now you're gone, like poof, right?
Right.
but but it's what we do. We come in and we poof
Yeah.
away, right? And so
Yes.
yeah. So what is some other, what are your thoughts about that in terms of just experience with
Mm.
like military groups, non-military groups, any pros and cons, types of
Yes.
groups, anything?
I think, again, I think mindset is so important because if you're dragging your feet coming into a place, they're going to feel it. They're going to feel
Right.
like,
That's
oh,
so
she
true.
doesn't really
That's
want to
true.
be here. And helping your kids understand that too, that, that old adage, you have to be a friend to make a
Yeah.
friend.
Yeah.
And that's true. I think I I can't imagine honestly being a military wife and being an introvert. I know there are those of you out there. I am. I'm kind of on the. I'm not super extroverted, but I thrive meeting new people. I love to make connections. I love to find those points of commonality, and go from there. Like, oh, you have a big family, so do we, or you homeschool, so do we. There's just all the. That's how I found my best friends and my support system. But I know that's hard if you're an introvert. And especially, as our family grew, it got harder for me to make the connections because I was really more concerned about my kids because I figured,
Exactly.
it would come a little more naturally for me. But it's hard when you see your kids struggling.
It
And
is.
that
It is.
that became really difficult as they got into their teen years. And ultimately, that was one of the factors of saying, okay, we're putting our foot down. We are retiring. We're not moving one more time.
Yeah.
We've got
Yeah.
teenagers on the one end of the spectrum that they've given up so much and they've gone literally around the world with us. And we're not going to do this one more time to them. Down to Verity, reestablishing her care was already hard enough the first time.
Yeah.
We don't want to do that again. So I think mindset, wherever you're going, acknowledging, being realistic to say,
Yes.
this is hard. I miss my friends too. I really miss them. But remember the time before that. We miss those friends too, right?
Right.
And then you can list all the names, all the wonderful people, connections that you made from your last duty station. And, even if your kids are young, they'll grow a track record with you. But
Right.
to go into a group, one of the things that my husband and I heard frequently, and part of it may just be our personality, part of it may be this is our mindset that we established early on. But the churches that we would get involved with, and we would hear that too, oh, you're military, we lose so many good military
Kind of
people.
that, kind of like this, right? Oh,
But
you're military.
right, but they would tell us almost every single place except Naples, because it's just a given, because everybody there is connected with the military. But they would say, gosh, you guys you jump in with both feet and you get involved. I wish that the rest of our church would, or the rest of our co-op, who I wish they would volunteer with the
Right.
heart that you do. And we would say, well, it's because we know we don't have much time. It's like chop,
Right.
chop. We got to get
Exactly.
going.
Get going, right? Let's
We,
go.
if I want to make friends, I want to have those friends as long as possible.
As
Like, I don't
long
want to
as
wait till,
possible.
6 months before we PCS and just start building relationships. Then
I know. Yes.
it's so for us, it was imperative that we get plugged in right away. And again, it gets harder as your family grows, whether number of children or age of children. As you grow, it does get harder because people get busier, and it's harder to get those teens to connect when they're going in 50 different directions. But the intentionality and the mindset of saying, okay, I like we so one of the more challenging assignments we had was to Offutt, but we actually chose to live in a little town in Iowa, just over the river.
Okay.
And we loved it. We got a more bang for our buck when it came to renting a house, but the community has a very different mindset, especially coming from Italy with that tight-knit group. And that was the first place we felt a little bit of resistance, where there's like this community where everybody grown up together, and then there's my kids.
Right. I hear you.
And so that was a hard road to walk for teenagers who were used to making friends and jumping in, and they felt this wall. Like, nobody cared that they had lived in Italy. Nobody asked them. And they're like, well, I have these experiences I want to tell you about. So, in a place like that, if you feel some resistance, whether it's a homeschool group, and you mentioned, leadership, if you have these gifts and talents and experience that you want to bring to the table, just to be able to have the confidence, boldness, pray before you go, but to walk in and say, hey, I realize that you guys have been here a long time. I know that we're going to move, but I want you to know I'm committed to this group while we're here, because this is our family. This is our community. Here's what I have to offer. So, do you have experience with teaching co-op groups? Have you organized field trips or whatever you're passionate about? There's almost always a place where you can serve, and to bring that fresh perspective, and not to make it sound like, oh, you guys have done the same thing for 22 years, but to say,
I hear you.
In a nice way, is there something I could do that you've wanted to try, and you just don't have somebody willing to do it, or something like that? I feel like you can spin things to the positive, and that's often what we do as military spouses, because we know we have to make the best of a difficult situation. And as the moms, we lead the family in the heart and the emotions, and so maybe that could be a way when it's difficult to kind of break into those circles, that you could turn things around.
I totally agree. I'm thinking of, we jump in. I think the challenge of relocating, there's also the skills that it gives us if we embrace the relocating as much as we can. And it gives us the skills to raise our hand skills, right? Here I am. This is who I am, what I can offer. I want to serve. I'm here for a limited time. That's that elephant in the room. I know I'm here for a limited time, but I'm ready. Let's go, right? And we bring experiences and projects and things we've seen work and things we have seen didn't work so well from other duty stations, and we come and bring typically a fresh perspective, and we can be very innovative. And I think that's incredible. And if we jump in, like you said, as a mom, we're usually the ones leading it. We're usually the ones, oh, we got orders, and we're no longer penciled in. Now we got definite orders, right? And okay, let's start researching that duty station and all of the co-ops and all of the things homeschool related and all the things non-homeschool related. And where are we going to live? Are we going to live on post or base or whatever you call it, depending upon your branch? What are we going to do? And we are the temperature setters, the thermometer, right? So like we go in and say, come on, kids, right? We're going in and we're going to meet the people, and we're going to, and that's one of the, I think, things that makes the ease in terms of some of our military homeschool groups is we all speak the same language and we all walk the same walk. And so it does make it a little bit easier, but we also know that we are now, that maybe happens, that connection is tighter in places like Naples, right? Because like you said, we're all there because most Americans are there because of the military or diplomatic corps or something, right? But in some of the places where, there are, like here in Northern Virginia, there's so much outside of the post that calls people that it can be a little bit more difficult. And that means we are in non-military homeschool groups interacting. And so we just jump
Yes.
in, and God is good to just kind of guide us with that. And I'm thankful. I'm
Hmm.
so thankful for that. So I
Yes.
thought about it. I said, let me look and see if we have any comments because we've been having such a great conversation.
I
I haven't even
know.
so let me see if there's any comments here. Let me go down
Sure.
to, let me look and see. I appreciate everybody that has been joining us. Thank you so much. And even once this is done and you're watching, still comment and share this out to somebody because I know there's people all over the world we serve as military. So let me see. Let me start at the beginning and see if there are any questions here. I see a couple of people. I see Rachel. I see somebody, Fort Knox, Holly, Jessica Jackson. First year home, third move this year, first year homeschooling. Holly
Mm.
says, awesome. Let's see what else. Let's see. Cheyenne, Wyoming, Air Force family, not retired yet though. Uh, Rachel says her brother's at Pendleton now. Woo, I love
Ah,
Pendleton. We got Naval Air Station Whitby, a couple of duty. Oh, this person, Bud, thank you, Bud. He listed his duty stations. Whidbey Island, San Diego, Sigonella. We know Sigonella, right?
yes.
Jackson River, Edwards Air Force Base. We got a Fort Bragg with Amy. We got a lot of people. 20 years Army spouse, homeschooling 20 years. Shout out to you,
Hmm.
Amy. North
Yes.
Dakota, Brittany. Amy also says, I have two college grads and a to be senior in high school. Yeah,
Yay.
yeah.
Awesome.
I've been there and Beverly's headed there soon. Well, not soon, but once, your
Yeah.
son
I
finishes,
have,
right? Because he's at Patrick Henry, right?
yeah, Tobin just finished his first year at Patrick Henry College and loved it. He did amazing. Yeah.
That's
And
so
then my
awesome.
oldest is married and she is
Yes.
finishing her associates through Colorado Christian University.
I couldn't believe. I was like, oh, my baby girl. Oh
I
gosh, but
know.
let's see. Oh, Kareem Morado, she is. Hola, Kareem, ¿cómo estás? She's at one of our consultants. And Amy says, God always gives us a wink and a nod just when we need it. Yes, yes.
Yes.
Douglas shared about his son, him spherectomy surgery while he was on active duty.
Mm.
Homeschooling has been a true blessing from God. I hear you. I hear you, Douglas. Let me see. Okay, Holly has a question. Can you explain how you found your co-op group? And she has
Mm.
Facebook, library, church, in
Mhm.
parentheses. That's one question I see. If you want to unpack
Yeah.
that, I'll look and see what else.
Sure. Facebook has been a great place. Like I said, if you're on Facebook, you just start with Facebook. I think that most groups that I've been a part of have had a Facebook presence, even if they have other means like their own website. You can certainly do just a Google search for, you know, I put in Christian homeschoolers of Colorado Springs, for example, or just do a Google search to see what's out there. I joined, so I'm in a Facebook group in Colorado Springs that's just an umbrella, Christian homeschoolers, and this is a sprawling area. So, some if there's an exchange of books or something, you may be driving 45 minutes to meet up. But with that said, there are little group. So there's a classical conversations group. There's, the co-op that I'm involved in, which is umbrella ministry under one of the local churches, not one we attend, but it draws a lot of different families. So I had no idea how many homeschool groups there could be. Actually, I think I researched more coming to Colorado Springs to find some good fits for us. And
Yes,
there's the Wiccan homeschoolers. There's
yes,
just all,
yes,
all, all
yes.
kinds of homeschool groups out there. So
There's
uh,
a,
it
a
just,
plethora.
yeah, you just have to. And then again, if you have even one personal connection, even one, oh, I was stationed there a few years ago. Oh, did you know of any homeschool groups or
Right.
anything to give a little bit of nuance to your searching? That's helpful.
Yes.
But
So
it does.
helpful. So helpful.
It's not necessary. You can find your way, but it is great if you have even one personal connection.
Yes, and I wanted to also shout out in reference to Holly's question too. Is HSLDA maintains a group
Yes.
directory,
Oh
group
yeah.
services directory. One of my goals as military outreach coordinator is to increase the listings for our military homeschool support group. So I'm working on that. So if you're listening and you're head of a military homeschool support group, please reach out to group services. Darren will say, oh, no, he's actually excited about it. And so definitely to get your group listed in our directory. Okay. We can't list you. You have to request and list yourself. So what else do I see? I see Huntington, West Virginia, Navy Reserves, 5th-year homeschooling. Lily Perez, hola, she's a friend from North Carolina when my time in New River. So there's quite a few people here. I'm looking to see if I see any other questions. I appreciate you all so much. Douglas asked, Beverly, will you be at the Colorado Homeschool Conference next weekend? So I'm not sure if you, okay.
I will not. To be honest, I loved all the homeschool conferences early in our homeschool journey and kind of up through when my older ones were starting to get into junior high. And then in Italy, we didn't have the opportunity to do that. And then once we moved back stateside, I am never going to say I know it all. So don't take this the wrong way. But after a while, we have our curriculum, we're set. I know if I go to those, I'm going to spend money. And so we are sunlighters personally, not that necessarily makes a difference to anything we're saying here, but our curriculum, like I've bought everything. So I just get the consumable stuff, but the conferences, the workshops and seminars, they are so good for burnout, for helping you get rejuvenated and excited. And I just got so much value from that as a young homeschool mom, and even in getting into the middle years. Right now, Verity is a little bit front and center. She's harder to travel with. It's harder for me to leave for an extended time. So to not go with her is kind of hard. And we are launching our nonprofit. And so this summer is all about really digging in and getting the word out there that we are here to serve families with a life-limiting diagnosis for their child. And so with all that being the case, I'm not going.
I hear you.
I do. I love it. I could be a career conference attender because I just love conferences. I love events.
I love them
and
too.
It's just so fun.
Too. I wanted to, on the heels of this, I love conventions and conferences too. And you and I are similar personalities, but one of our co-laborers in the field, Home Educators Association of Virginia, is actually having their HEAV, right? What they say, don't call
that was my first one.
Exactly. I think it's HEAV. What they prefer now, but in my heart, because I still but they are actually having their virtual conference starting. You register and it's starting tomorrow. So it's www.homeschoolingwithconfidence.org to take advantage of the HEAV conference, virtual conference. And let me see. We need to wrap up because you and I have had such a great conversation. I'm so thankful for everybody that has joined. So let me see. What do we want to talk about real quickly? I wanted to give your resource out. So you can find Beverly and connect with her on social media at An Essential Harvest, or check out all the resources that she has made available on beverlyjacobson.com. Okay. An Essential Harvest is her on social media. Am I getting that correct? And beverlyjacobson.com to reach her and to find out more about her nonprofit. I know that even if it's not something that you personally need experience, we know someone who does. And so sharing of information is what we do as a military community. So please,
thank you.
Click on the website and share it and get the word out, because I know God is using her and Ted and their family. Verity is a blessing, and that blessing he wants to share with those who need it, who need that support. So definitely spread the word.
Thank you.
Else? Oh, yeah, definitely. I appreciate you coming on as a guest. We face so many challenges, right, here as military families. But one of the things that HEAV is working on is to develop resources to find connection and encouragement. And so as military outreach coordinator, this first Facebook Live, I'm so excited. So Definitely let us know in the comments if you would like to see more of this type of thing, Facebook Lives with military families, talking about a variety of topics, introducing us to the world, right? Because sometimes we don't, people are like, I don't know what happens behind the gates of the installation, right? So here we are front and center. So HSLDA also maintains a list of homeschooling support groups overseas. And also, like I mentioned earlier, I want to get you in the directory if you're interested in doing that. Please reach out to group services at hslda.org. Put a plug in also as a high school educational consultant for the consultant services. We love on our families, and many of us, all of us, have walked the journey or are still currently homeschooling. So we offer so much as consultants with transcript reviews and special needs and high school to college and even elementary. So reach out and take advantage of those benefits. If you are not a member, then we would love to have you join us, and you can see all of what you get and even more that I didn't get to unpack. So find out more about us at hslda.org/join, JOIN. That's hslda.org/join. And finally, I want to thank you, Beverly, from my heart. Oh, Napoli
Mm,
Bella.
yes.
Una brazzo, una brazzo. So,
CCC.
thank you so much. You have been such a blessing to me, I know to our audience, and I know God is just using you and Ted in mighty ways. And so thank you for your
Thank you.
service, not only as military and now retired, but just your heart for God and just the love that you have for community and blessing others. I do
Mm,
appreciate it. And I consider you a friend. I know distance with military, but we move all over the
likewise.
place, but we still
Yes.
good friends. So I
Yes.
appreciate you. Is there anything that you wanted to say as we close out?
Just to encourage moms, I especially feel led to encourage those at the beginning of the journey. I remember hearing experienced homeschool moms talk about burnout, and they had been, homeschooling for so long, and I was thinking, that'll never happen to me. I just love this. I love everything about it. But it happens, and just know life throws you curveballs, and whether it's an unexpected death in the family, or a challenge, or deployment, or whatever it is, a special needs child joining your family. Homeschooling is so much more than the checking the boxes of the school year. It's life. It's doing life together
So,
and
yes. Amen.
training up that next generation to have a strong
Mhm.
foundation so that they can give an answer when someone asks for the reason for the hope that they have within them.
Exactly.
And this
Exactly.
is a high calling, and it is absolutely worth every bit of time and energy and effort that you pour into it. And God is going to more than repay what you put into it, and He will cover those gaps and those chasms. So you can do
You're
it
right. The
with His
chasms
help.
and the gaps. That's a
Yep.
whole nother one we can do. Talk about God covering the
Yes.
chasms and the gaps. You are
Yes.
so right. You're right. God bless you, Beverly, and the whole
Thank
Jacobson family.
you.
Hugs to
Thank
Ted.
you.
And
I
yes,
will.
definitely. Thank you so much. Thank you all for joining us. And we hope to see you in the future with more of these. Thank
Yes.
you.